Hey guys, welcome back to New Record Day. My name is Ron. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell notification so you know when the next video drops. In today's quick and brief video, I wanted to share my first impressions of the Boocart S400 Mark IIs. Before we begin, the S400 Mark IIs were sent to me by Boocart Audio. All my thoughts and opinions are my own. I'm not being paid to say this, and no, I don't get to keep these in exchange for the review or any of that kind of silly nonsense. This is just what I think about these guys so far. And when we get to the official review, I will back up everything that I have to say about these with some measurements, and we'll even do the typical sound clips, or not so typical. Wow, it's been a while since we've done sound clips with commentary, so yeah, let's do that as well. Either way, S400 Mark II, what's different about the Mark II versus the Mark I? Glad you asked. Let's talk about it. All right, so giving me a little bit of grace, this is early and I'm just starting to do some research and ask questions about the S400 Mark II, but there are three key features that we need to talk about, starting with the woofer. And this is actually a really big deal, at least for me. We have ditched the aluminum cone driver, which was in the Mark I for it makes me so happy to say this. It's like the clouds have parted and there's Maz Boocart just ascending and just saying, hey Ron, guess what we did? And I'm like, what did you do? Paper cone driver. Now, why is that a big deal and why should we even give a rip? Well, the answer is, it's been my experience over and over and over again that when it comes to a woofer, right, the material of that cone matters. And when it comes to what I feel is the best sounding material that one can use, it's paper. There's just something about it that sounds natural, it sounds realistic. And when we start talking about texture and tone in bass, well, with a paper cone driver, that's exactly what you get. Now, with a revamp of the woofer, a completely different redesign of the woofer, you guessed it, we got a new crossover. If we're gonna redesign the woofer, we have to redesign the crossover, and that is exactly what we have. And I've got some really interesting news for you. For folks that ride the line that things like capacitors and inductors and resistors all make a difference, right? Guess what? Good news is here. Again, Maz Boocart shows up and says, guess what I did, Ron? What did you do, Maz? I gave you guys high quality parts on the crossover of the Mark II. So, gone are sandcast resistors and some of the parts, and what we have here, based on this photo that I found on Boocart's website, I haven't verified it, so this is no fact checking or anything like that. I will be taking a look on the inside of the Mark IIs just to verify that what we see on their website matches what we have inside the loudspeaker here. And based on what I can tell, what I can see on that crossover board is we've got some good parts, high quality parts, boutique parts. And so if that matters to you, then this is good news. And if it doesn't matter to you, well then, okay. The last thing that we're going to talk about, and I didn't even notice this, so this is not what I would say is a really big deal, but apparently the Mark IIs are just slightly bigger than the Mark I. Like I said, as soon as I pulled these out of the box, I thought these were the exact same size as the Mark Is. At no point was I saying, wow, this is now a big clunky loudspeaker. It's not. I would classify this as a true bookshelf, bookie loudspeaker, a bookshelf loudspeaker, as opposed to like a larger stand mount loudspeaker. So it's got that going for it. Small speaker, big performance, and that is what we're going to chat about right now. So I was really critical of the Mark I, maybe overly critical looking back. Maybe I was a little bit too hard on that particular loudspeaker, but the reason that I was maybe a bit critical is I felt like every review, the way that everybody was talking about that loudspeaker was, this changes everything. This is a unicorn. This is a genuine diamond amongst a bunch of ugly stones. And I didn't necessarily feel that way. I felt like what we got out of that loudspeaker was a relatively smaller bookshelf style speaker that gave you a lot of performance, right? And so one of the most notable things that a lot of people liked about the original Mark I is you plop those things down, you turn up the music, and you're sitting there thinking, holy cow, I do not need a subwoofer. And not only that, but everything in the mid-band, especially mid-bass, lower mid-range, it all sounds just, yeah. It was a really great performing loudspeaker in that regard, is that it's a small speaker that doesn't perform like a small loudspeaker. I was nitpicky about a couple of very small things, namely bass, tone, texture, detailed information in bass. I felt like it was a little bit lacking. It didn't quite have what I was looking for. And that's the first I'm going to mention is immediately, even before spending a lot of time with these, is I am hearing texture and tone in the bass. And so, look, call it what you want. I love the sound of paper cone drivers. I'm hearing it with these. We have that initial attack of the upright, the way that it kind of wakes up the upright bass. There's just a lot of clarity there. And so that's very exciting. And this is early on with first impressions. So the fact that I do believe that break-in is a thing, so I'll say that, get that out of the way for some people to get mad about, and some people be like, well, yeah, of course. But I think that as that woofer relaxes, I think that what I'm hearing right now is just going to get better with time. The second thing that I was nitpicky about with the original Mark I is when it comes to information in the time domain, which is just a made-up word. It doesn't mean anything, but let's just run with it and pretend that it's real. Time domain. This is time-sensitive information in top-end extension, cymbal hits, decay, the way that things just sort of bounce off walls in the actual given space of the recording, and how long it lingers and how realistic it sounds. I felt like with the Mark I that while it did that, I wish that it did it a little bit more. And guess what? The Mark IIs do. So, again, being brief, first impressions right out of the gate with the Bucar S400 Mark II, there are two things that I'm noticing right out of the gate, which is bass, clarity, definition, texture and tone and bass is definitely better than the Mark I. And the second thing that I'm noticing is information in what we call the time domain. It's better. It seems to me like there is a bit more clarity, there's a bit more snap, there's a bit more information that is being unraveled with the Mark IIs than there was with the Mark I. So yeah, like I said, these are just initial first impressions of the Bucar S400 Mark II. We are going to be putting these through their paces and checking out everything that we can about these loudspeakers. So watch out for sound clips with commentary. Pay attention to the upcoming review, which I will be offering my measurements for those that care about measurements. And yeah, I gotta say, Maz, good job. I do genuinely feel that we might actually have a unicorn, maybe. I don't know for a fact, but things are shaping up and they're moving in the direction with this hand gesture, which is wildly inappropriate. I think that what we have here is a potential unicorn. It might be a unicorn. This could shape up to be one of the best, yeah, maybe one of the best sounding bookies that I've spent time with. So, first impressions, very, very positive. Take it for what it's worth. We'll see you guys in the next video.